Your speaker specializes in helping individuals and organizations strengthen their adaptive skills and overall personal development. She's been in the coaching realm for over 13 plus years. If you don't mind going to the next slide, please. Yes, our presenter today, Mandy, has been, over 20 years of high-performing leadership roles in civic, community, nonprofit, government, and corporate boards. Obviously, she's very passionate about executive coaching and change management and making sure that all-around leadership development. So today she's here to share about the adaptability quotient, which is, in 2020, we've all had to adapt in some form or way. So without further ado, I'm happy to pass along to our speaker, Mandy. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that warm introduction. This was a great pleasure because, again, I feel as though that I'm among good family and friends, literally family and friends, as that warm introduction was given by Matthew. And so, Matt, this is our first time sharing space, actually, of this 20-year plus relationship. You know, whether we should be formal, if we should let our hair down, but I'll be formal for the time being to save. But I appreciate that warm introduction. And again, everyone else that's a part of this, I am so grateful that you all decided to join. Whether if this is your lunch hour, whether if this is your time right now to, tool up and to build yourself right now as a leader. I'm excited to be able to talk to you about the topic today, which is the adaptability quotient, which is also known as AQ. So again, I know that Joel and the rest of the team, this is rather informal, but others that if you choose to want to take a pen and paper as I go through, I'm trying to make sure that, you guys get the sound bites and some good nuggets to have some takeaways from this today, okay? And again, as Matthew did mention, this is going to be interactive. So, I have the fortune of seeing some great names as I see Alicia Bracey, and as I see, Charlie Walsh and, Steve, Alan, Diana, get comfortable because I may call your name at any given time. But again, for those that may be a little bit more on the shy side and prefer just to absorb and to think, because there is, different thinking styles a part of this. If you want to drop anything in the chat group, just know that I will be responsive and be able to see that as well. All right, so let's get ready to begin as we talk about this adaptability quotient and the AQ factor. For many of us, I just want to kind of give you guys a heads up. We're going to be speaking about, why this adaptability quotient is important. Ultimately, too, how to be able to measure what your adaptability is. How do you develop this skill set? Yeah, because the reality is that adaptability, it is a skill set. And hopefully I can leave you with a few more resources and training. And if you want to, follow up with me even afterwards, I am happy to be able to have some additional, one-on-one time with you. But again, as we go through this, hopefully these areas will be answered. And if you have any questions, like I said before, feel free to drop it in the chat box. So many of us, we're familiar with hearing IQ, right? That was our intelligence. EQ became something that many of us then also began to hear over the past 20 years. And as I said before, today I'm going to be speaking to you about the AQ evolution. It's interesting because, IQ, which we all would take pride on, right? So intelligence was the way that we figured out who we would become as a leader, how we would succeed. We started to realize that, in the best companies, when we were selected, we felt very honored because oftentimes we had to show that we had this high IQ, that typically it was shown through the schools we went to, the degrees that we were able to possess. And again, it was a brand of honor to really just speak to the fact that you have a high IQ. 20 years ago, though, there was beginning to have a breakthrough within leadership because you realize that a lot of people who were in these companies, they were all smart. They were all, with these amazing credentials and could speak to the distinguished schools or the different kinds of trainings of what they've received. And there became a differentiator factor. And that differentiator factor became then the EQ, which ultimately was one's emotional intelligence, right? So that person really realized that, you know, what was the differentiator factor of me then getting in the job or being able to move up in the ranks in these roles. And it began to say that, well, what is the person's emotional quotient? How well are they able to have a self-awareness of themselves? How well do they relate in the likability factor with themselves within their team, and getting team members to even follow them ultimately to the different areas of the company, or to get them to be able to be influencers, to do the things of what was needed. And so that became a real big, I guess, barometer where one wanted to be able to move up in the company. They realized that the emotional quotient was very, very important. But from there, after that, there's been this new frontier. And I would almost say that this new frontier, the AQ, the adaptability quotient, is becoming even more important than your intelligence. And I would say that the emotional quotient, the EQ side of the house, plays a big factor on one's ability to be able to adapt. So the next evolution within leadership, for those that are starting to experience a lot of career growth or being able to expand, even continuing to grow with the company, a lot of it is dealing with now the leader's ability to adapt. And again, today I will be going through and sharing more about what this looks like. As I shared, again, out of these three, the most important right now that a lot of research is starting to show is that the AQ is becoming the most important leadership factor to be able to move and to grow. Fast Company magazine is quoting this right now as the future of work. Harvard Business Review, kind of where even the title of this came from when I read the periodical in Harvard Business Review. It's the new competitive advantage. And one good thing, though, is that they're realizing with this adaptability quotient, scientists are also acknowledging that this is a skill. And not only is it a skill, but it's a skill that you can honestly learn. So for those that may feel as though that, you know, we'll be taking a quiz here in a minute of how adaptable you might feel you are, good thing is that this is a skill set that can be learned. This year, Matthew kind of gave that kind of, you know, prelude a bit here. You know, for myself, as I shared in the opening, you know, again, I come from a background with organizational as an organizational psychologist working within change management training and leadership development. You know, I've had some experience with the need to change, grow, and to adapt. But I wish I could say that, you know, as much of a practitioner as I am around this area, I wish that I could say that I had this awesome ability to keep growing and to adapting. My passion actually around this field started because as an adaptability researcher was because of my own personal journey. As much as I thought I liked to change, as much as I thought I liked adventures by living in 3 different states and, you know, experiencing various different time zones and all the different great things that my life has brought over the past 25 plus years, I soon realized I was the least adaptable person. And I realized also I hated change. And it was like a tension. It was an interesting wrestle for me because I did not think that, you know, like I said, by me being open to say that, no, I'm willing, let's go, let's travel. But I found, though, the internal wrestle of what I was going through on the inside and a lot of what I was feeling, I really had to take myself on this personal journey. And I'm thankful over time that I learned that, you know, pretty much either I adapt or I be 100% miserable. So for those that, you know, you may not realize where you fall on this spectrum right now, I just want to give you encouragement because, again, as one that had to go on this individual journey myself, to realize that although I, you know, again, I train others, I help organizations to be, you know, more nimble and adapt and to embrace change. I realized that as an individual, as a person, I really had to go on that individual journey myself to learn new skill sets so I could still remain adaptable. So again, I'm really passionate around, you know, speaking to these many things. And even as you can see some of these different pictures, a lot of us, we just came through, you know, the voting season right now. It still may have some of us a little, you know, sleep deprived as it's been playing over and over again on CNN or Fox or whatever your news choice is, because we are still, you know, within the thick of all of that. But again, the greatest turnout that has ever happened really right now in election time in history. But that shows, though, still, it can go either way as far as how people really feel about the election overall. Same thing as you can even see the different things as you see teamwork and the diversity of teams. the reality is that this AQ quotient is a vital skill set to have, because we're working more globally connected than ever before across people with a variety of diversity and different lifestyles, mindsets, things that make individuals up. That, again, how do you then continue to stay adaptable within your work spot? Same goes even within the intergenerational aspects. No time in history have we ever had such a diversified workforce working side by side. Intergenerationally at this moment, we literally have the boomers, we have X, we have millennials, and we actually even started to have Generation Z that is coming in within internships right now as well. So literally we have everything that is spanning from the 40s all the way through the early 2000s right now that is working side by side intergenerationally. And again, everyone has their different ways of how they do engage and how they may even approach different things by technology and again, other things or processes that technology may not always solve. So this AQ, this adaptability quotient, I cannot emphasize anymore that it is literally the new frontier, that as a leader, that if one has not chose to stop and pause and reflect, to wonder how adaptable are they, there's so many indicators to show, again, the importance of one wanting to master this skill. So this is a quote by Alvin Toffler. If you're not familiar with who he is, Alvin Toffler is known to be a great futurist. And one of his things that he has quoted is saying is that the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. I'll read that one more time, because oftentimes that goes back to that IQ. We used to pride ourselves of how much we can learn, and we are actually sitting in the knowledge age, the technology age right now, where we're able to get information so fast. But there is still a difference of one taking in information and being able to learn, and one willing to still let go of those things of what they think they know, what they thought they knew, and more importantly, embracing the possibilities of where the future is possibly going. And so again, just realizing that that is the times that we're sitting in right now, it's very important that we just still, again, embrace the fact of this adaptability quotient. So this is when the great poll comes in. We're going to see how adaptable you are. So Matthew, are you able to bring up the poll by any chance? And as I mentioned before, this is a poll where the first one, and we're going to take two polls here, okay? So the first poll is to test kind of your IQ, so your overall mindset. And literally, I'm going to read this question in two different ways, because one, I want you to rate, and I want you to think about this in two ways, and whichever way feels more comfortable for you, okay? So follow me for a second. Rate your level of agreement or disagreement with the following. So the first question is, and again, you're going to rate it whether if you agree with it or you disagree with it, but you're just going to pick one answer, okay? And it's all about how your mind chooses to process it, whether if you want to say, no, I really agree with this, or I really disagree with this. So either you pick one on your intelligence is something very basic about you that you can't change very much. Your intelligence is something very basic about you that you can't change very much. Either you really agree with that or disagree. But again, you only can pick one answer. So let me read them all. Second one, you can learn new things, but you can't really change how intelligent you are. You can learn new things, but you can't really change how intelligent you are. Third one, no matter how much intelligence you have, you can always change quite a bit. Read that again. No matter how much intelligence you have, you can always change it quite a bit. And the next and last, you can always substantially change how intelligent you are. You can always substantially change how intelligent you are. So I want you to pick one that resonates, either that you really agree with or you really disagree with. All right.
The votes are still rolling in. For 1 second. Cool. Show the results.
All right. So this is the thing. There is no right or wrong answer with this. Typically for those that may have answered either, and again, I know that it's not labeled as A, B, C, or D. So I will say either 1, 2, 3, or 4, whichever way you guys want to look at this. But typically this is an indicator that if you picked one or two, excuse me, 1 or 3, that shows particularly if one has more of a fixed mindset, The next ones, 3 and 4, shows if one has more of a growth mindset. So it looks like the majority on this line here, 46%, you all have a growth mindset, which is awesome, because that at least shows, again, that you're open to know that, no, I really can learn. And not just that, but wait a second. I think I've read that wrong, Matthew. I see the questions. So I'm reading my paper here and I'm looking up here now. You can learn new things, but you can't really change how intelligent you are. So really the number 2 and 4 shows that really one has more of a fixed mindset. 1 and 3 shows that one has a growth mindset. So it's interesting. I take that back. I'm sorry. I have to take my pearls back to everyone that I gave a kudos to of the growth mindset. But actually, it shows that individuals on this line right now has more majority of a fixed mindset. You can learn new things, but you can't really change how intelligent you are. I look forward to also going more into that, because I'm sure that's going to be a good discussion here a bit, especially for those that may have a strong opinion around that. Can we go to the next poll, please? So the next one is going to test, ultimately, your EQ. And this is interesting because a good measure of your EQ is also dealing within your personality, right? Your personality aspects. So again, very similar, picking which one that resonates more, that you agree with or you may disagree with. You are a certain kind of person, and there is not much that can be done to really change that. You are a certain kind of person, and there is not much that can be done to really change that. 2, no matter what kind of person you are, you can always change substantially. And don't pick with what sounds right. I want you to pick with what really resonates with you. 3, you can do things differently, but the important parts of who you are can't really be changed. You can do things differently, but the important parts of who you are can't really be changed. And 4, you can always change basic things about the kind of person you are.
Votes are still trickling in.
All righty.
Waiting on like one more. Cool.
Matthew, we demand a recount.
Listen, look, you're going to make me go through shock with the votes right now. Stop that. Stop that. The elections, already mentioned about elections and adapting. We want to recount.
I'm not leaving my position.
Okay, we're not opening up those floodgates. We're not opening it up. I love it. So with this, we can see here that, again, for the majority of the individuals on this line, no matter what kind of person you are, you can always change substantially. Now, I wonder, did you all just pick that because you wanted to seem like you had the growth mindset? Or do you really believe that? Do you really believe that? Because this is the thing. Change, regardless to how much it is a part of life, it is the hardest thing for one to adapt and to adjust to. It is the one thing that shows the most resistance most of the time. And so, again, it's very encouraging to see that many of you did pick the fact that no matter what kind of person you are, you can always change. And the key word, substantially. So the question now becomes how? How is that possible? As I mentioned before, you know, again, with the fixed mindset and growth mindset, again, there's an author that has written on this, and I will talk more about that in a minute. But again, the name of the game is really continuing to self-scan ourselves and to do the internal work, to do the work that what we need to do to begin to really say, okay, how do I really develop this adaptability? What kinds of tools, what kinds of mindset must I possess? So one of the things that, you know, within this work, and again, as I said earlier, this is a skill that can be learned. It is a skill set that can be learned. But one of the bigger skill sets, or one of the bigger indicators, is the fact that does one have a beginner's mindset? A beginner's mindset. Mindset also shows oftentimes that, you know, am I willing to, as I said earlier, scrap the things of what I think I know? Now this can be, you know, I guess, very important to distinguish what do I really mean by that? Because there's sometimes we can observe certain things and there's an inference, right? There's mental scripts that by you going through certain things, you experience certain things multiple times, that in the beginning you can say, no, 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 I really know where this is going to go. I know how this is going to turn out. But that would fall in the bucket more of being distinguished as more of facts and conjuncture. But when one is really then stepping into a space and it's something new, right? And you know that you may feel uncomfortability around it. You may feel a little resistance and hesitance in it. If it is something that you're going off of a mental script and you realize that, am I really going off of observation? Is this kind of more of an inference of what I think I know? Those are the moments that when you need to sometimes step back and mindfully, consciously let yourself know to say, hey, maybe I need to have a beginner's mindset in this moment. Maybe I need to step back to really say, I don't know. Even if sometimes our cup can be full and we may feel like I really do know. But again, there are other moments that when it is observational and when it's, when it is facts and when it is based more on conjecture and you do know with what you do know, that's fine. But there's other moments when we're uncomfortable. We need to step back to say, what is really making me uncomfortable, or why am I very uneasy about this? This sometimes shows up, particularly when one may have to learn a new technology, right? That again, you just learned finally. I don't know if you're anything about me. I'm an Android girl. And for anyone that's Apple user, sorry, really, Android is so simple. And anytime when it comes down to having to upgrade this phone, it becomes a serious pain for me because I'm a creature of habit. I shared with you guys earlier that I've gone on this journey to adapt, but I'm a creature of habit. And once when I get it figured out, when I know how to use it, please do not switch it up for me. However, the reality is that, you know, sometimes right now with these new features and different things that are happening with technology and particularly the cell phone, they may add a new feature where I'm used to swiping to the right. And gosh darn it, when I swipe to the right, I want my phone to open. And if it's now a new feature telling me that it's now recording because I swiped to the right, I'm going to think like, you know, again, there could be tension of what I'm feeling on the inside. So in that moment, I may need to step back and really question whether, again, the tension of what I'm feeling, is it founded? Is it valid that the phone may be broke or they did something wrong? Or is it me in this moment that needs to possibly slow down and to really evaluate, assess that, am I just going off of, you know, again, a memory script of what I remember to do? Or am I choosing to learn this new technology in this case and choosing to be open to say that although I'm used to swiping to the right, this time around, they may have redesigned the phone and I now need to learn how to swipe whichever way in order to, you know, make my phone work. But that's something that is, and Joel has a joke here, when electricity goes out, I still automatically attempt to turn on the light. Yeah, that is a good laugh, but nonetheless, it's one where technology is an easy one to pick on, but there's so many other buckets that, again, when we are approaching different things in life and different things are coming at us and we need to really challenge our adaptability. Again, you could be sitting in a group setting and one can be coming in with a different point of view that for you, there's a lot of things that shape your own personal views, whether if it's your values, whether if it's your own personal principles, whether if it is your cultural experiences, your traveling experiences, whatever the case might be. But again, when you're sitting in a group and among a team, sometimes one can have a very dogmatic view to say that this is the way that we've always done it. But when someone else may be coming in to share another way to look at it, again, when you feel that ruffle on the inside, it's a perfect opportunity for you to sort of step back to say, what is it really? Is it something, again, that is observational or an inference of what I think I know? Or is it something really based off of facts that this is the reason why I need to really then, speak up possibly. But again, that adaptability, depending on the setting, depending on where you are, it is so subjective, and you do need to have situational awareness. But that's another, again, a part within the coaching that happens within adaptability. It is one where we're really big on teaching also sometimes a situational experience to really realize, are you the majority in this moment, or are you possibly the minority in the moment? And oftentimes, again, depending on where you fall within that spectrum, you may have a strong thought process behind it, but yet if you're the minority within this thought process, it behooves you more to really sit back and to observe and to possibly learn something new and to be open. So again, having that beginner's mindset is vital. The next thing is the prioritizing of exploration. As I mentioned before, there's some people that, I'll keep picking on myself, that we just like to stick to one path. I've been challenging myself over the past 3 years as I've been still working my AQ to take a different route on how I get home. So for me, sometimes I'm used to getting on that freeway. And if I'm used to, that this is the way to go, I'm going to challenge myself now to take a back road and to see that, I want to explore something different. And once again, I'm going to turn off my GPS. I don't want to depend on my Google Maps. What did we used to do without that? I don't know. I really don't. Like I cannot use a atlas map to save my life. But I guess that's where landmarks and other things then come in, or where you then have to challenge your mind and to let your mind remain nimble, right? Sometimes we can get very rigid, very static within the way that we do approach things, that it does not allow us to want to explore anymore. It becomes very, one note that it has to be this way. So again, sometimes I know, and this is something that not everyone may feel comfortable in doing, but I sometimes even take a pen or paper, or a pen, I should say, when I'm writing, and choosing to switch it and try to see if I can write with my left hand, more so than writing with my right hand. But it's an intentionality of prioritizing and choosing to say that I'm going to explore something new and something different. So therefore, my mind is able to stay just as nimble. So again, if I am interfacing with something that is different and new and that I'm not accustomed to, again, am I allowing myself to stay, pliable here? I appreciate Charlie's response, the fact that he rearranges his rooms, 2 or 3 times each year. How many have the family member? I'm going to say the family member, because again, I'm not going to make you call yourself out. But how many has the family member that you can go and literally the knickknacks are in the same exact spot, the lamp is still in the same area, nothing ever changes? That disruption sometimes really does throw some people off. And so I think that's great, Charlie, that you do, rearrange your room at least 2 to 3 times out of the year. And I would almost even encourage some of you to do the same thing, to feel that muscle that, hey, how do I really feel when I'm in my space and things are changing and things are rearranging? Right now, think about it, how nimble we had to be, where a lot of us were used to being either in our cubicles or we're used to being in a desk, but yet we had to go into this virtual reality world and starting to work from home. And it threw a lot of people off. But if we continue to work this adaptability muscle, you'll be amazed, especially specifically we're prioritizing your ability to want to explore. You'll be amazed on how you'll build that muscle, because again, this is a tool, this is a skill that can be taught. Last but not least, there are different assessments. Some people may not, want to push themselves. Again, I think someone put in the chat earlier that, comfort and convenience is the nemesis, oftentimes, of us wanting to deal with change. But the reality is that we grow our best, don't we? When we do experience things that are uncomfortable, when we are experiencing the things that are requiring for us to then change. And so again, some people may not want to push themselves naturally there, but there are different assessments that are out there. If for those that may be familiar, and I don't know if you've ever taken the Gallup Strength Finder test, the Strength Finder, by a show of hands, nod of heads, has anyone ever taken the Strength Finder? Yeah, great. Because out of those 30 different assessments, and if you have not taken it, I would encourage you to actually Google Strength Finder. If you purchase the book, they actually give you an access code that you're able to go online and take a test. In that test, they have 30 different, personalities, different assessments, and one of them does test your adaptability. So if you have not taken that in a while, it might be a great one to even go to, because again, things of where you may have been 5 years ago, sometimes different trauma, different stresses, things of what we've been sitting underneath right now, even this past year, it can make some people sometimes even rigid because they've dealt with too much change. There could be change fatigue. So I would really encourage you to possibly go and retake your Strength Finder to see where you fall within that adaptability. And again, I cannot emphasize enough, coaching. I know that for me, my best times of growth, my best times of evolution, and not just because I'm a coach, but it is when I've partnered with other coaches. Oftentimes they're able to get you to see further than where you are. They're also able to provide that perspective shift, that although you may be seeing it from one way, one lens, but it's amazing of how when someone else can come in to give you just that small perspective shift, and it just opens you up totally different. So again, if one wants to build on their adaptability, their AQ quotient, again, you're able to take your personal assessments that are out there. And again, Strength Finder, I really do encourage because it is free and you're able to do that immediate, but also partnering yourself with a coach. So let's add a little brevity here, y'all. Little brevity. Every leader does know that we have to get comfortable in the uncomfortable and still make it look as though that no, this is part of the plan, right? This is absolutely a part of the plan. No, it's not a part of the plan. But the more that we do embrace the fact that, yeah, we're going to look awkward sometimes, it's not going to feel good. I may want to even, run somewhere and hide at other moments. The reality is that the more that we go, the more that we still challenge ourselves, the more that we're really actually growing in these moments. So yeah, no comments, guys. You guys don't know anything. Well, I don't think that you guys know anything about wearing these heels. I'll just leave it that way. We have to be adaptable, right? We're in a diverse world right now. So yeah, these heels, they don't look very comfortable. She's not doing a good job here. But adaptability. So in these moments, and I hope that you guys appreciated that small laugh there, but in these moments, really, I could take you down several different ways of how to still build this muscle, because it does take you to have this learning mindset, as I talked about the growth piece. It does take one to continue to, like I said, really realize that there are different metrics that move this along. But the biggest one, and I think, like I said, because the way that my coaching practice works, and again, the way that I approach leaders, there's a quote that says that 10% of life is what happens to you, and 90% of how you respond to it, right? 10% of life is what happens to you. It's just life. You can't prevent it. You can't stop it. It's a part of what's going to happen. But ultimately, the biggest part that we can yet still control is 90% of how our attitude, how we process it, how we are choosing to extract whatever lessons learned out of it. But in this, though, the ones that are able to do it fastest and quickest are the ones that have chosen to do the inner work to learn themselves first. And so for me and within my practice, I really do an assessment with the leader. First of all, to figure out, one, have they done that work? Not everyone has had the luxury or even taken the time to slow down, to learn themselves, to figure out, what are your value sets? What are your governing principles? What is your personal even vision and mission statement that you're living from? And again, who you were 10 years ago, who you were 20 years ago, depending on the season where you are, it totally changes. So I actually really, especially with how much evolution and evolving that is happening now, I highly encourage for one to do this kind of assessment every 3 years. Before, one can kind of do it every 5 to 7 years and be pretty, consistent to who they were. But because things are constantly rapidly changing, and again, depending where you are on the age spectrum, because again, in the practice, sometimes I get into the neuroplasticity of your mind and realizing that the reality is when we say, can you teach old dog new tricks? Yeah, it becomes a little bit more challenging, but can you? You absolutely can. And so the reality is that one needing to go on this inner journey and to really begin to first understand themselves so they can then more effectively engage and let alone then lead others, right? So again, when you have that better base of who you are and just your ground principles and your rootedness, it's amazing of how more adaptable, how much more receptive you really are to others. And typically those that don't have that baseline, those are the ones that are the most rigid, because they're afraid typically of either one, not understanding with what it is that they're interfacing with. And when you don't have that groundedness within yourself, you almost feel as though that whatever the idea, whatever the position of someone else, that you're almost concerned that it's going to somehow influence you. But think about it. If you are grounded, if you are rooted on who you are, with what your principles are, it allows you to coexist, I think, a little bit more stronger side by side with whatever differences that may be around you, because you have a real pulse beat of who you are, and you are coming from a space of your true integrity. And there's a point of celebrating our differences more so than wanting everyone to then really be alike. So again, this real inner work, the real self-regulation is really important for a leader to go on that journey. The next thing also is the reality is that a lot of people go through, anxiety and stress. I was reading in this, and I appreciate, the psychology books. Not sure if you knew this or not, but there was a writing from the late 90s that had wrote about the fact that the word stress did not begin to get adapted into our lexicon as a real true mainstream word until the 1960s. Let me repeat this. The word stress did not really begin to get adopted into our mainstream lexicon, our mainstream, language, to really identify this as a real behavior of what one does feel until the 1960s. So realizing that there's certain things such as the word anxiety, which is a newer one, that again is different than stress. A newer word also, depression, that again, not to say that one does not possibly, that these experiences have not been around, but the reality of it being so mainstream and so widely accepted, so widely adopted, the reality is that these are still factors in our environment that are shaping us and driving us in ways that really our human design really was not meant to really carry. And so again, it's really, really important for one to go into these like self-regulating understanding about themselves. I want to get ready to have you guys. Oh, I went back to her again. Trying to go forward, Matt. I think this is the button here. Okay, it is. So I want you guys, because I've been doing a lot of talking here and I've been dropping a lot of, nuggets. How do you self-regulate yourself? And I want you to put it in the chat area, that when you are underneath stress, when you're dealing with a lot of changes, things that are happening fast, in a hurry, new processes possibly coming down the pipeline, possibly even interfacing with different cultures. Sometimes people have stressors when they're dealing with language barriers and they don't know exactly how, to show up. But how do you self-regulate yourself ultimately? What are some of the things you do to self-regulate yourself? And drop it in the chat box. I like it. Taking deep breaths, making lists. Exercise is huge. Kathy, I would love to almost do a session with you, because seeing that you like to prioritize and you like to make lists, I would be curious if you are one that the checklist, right? You like to check things off. And I'm curious of how that does show up though when things do change, right? That when you're not able to then organize yourself and to make the checklist. I'm sure your deep breaths, you probably have to take a lot of those. Music, charm to soothe the savage beast. Absolutely. Music is so a melody to the soul. Self-regulate by learning about what I am experiencing. So is that then being really present to it? Is it really then asking yourself the clarifying questions? Alicia, I'm wondering.
You want me to answer? Yes.
Yeah. Oh, if you're, thank you. I appreciate the voice. Yes.
Yeah, I try to focus in on what I'm feeling and what my experiences are that's making me feel whatever way that I'm feeling. And I try to learn about that and learn how I'm reacting to it, so that in the future, maybe I don't react the same way. So I try to learn from it.
Very good. How about with the exercise one? I see exercise, Joel, is huge for you. But again, I just want to I like to sometimes go to another side of the spectrum. If somehow, again, I don't know, you somehow lose the functions of using your legs, or you somehow, are not able to exercise in the same manner, maybe with the same intensity of what you may be used to get your stresses out. Do you have other things that you have or that you do to have as an outlet?
Yeah, good thoughts. I guess I'll be up the creek in some way, but I think my body already, I can tell that running is a pounding on it and such, but beyond just the burn or the challenge, really what it is exercise helps me overcome something every single day. And that act of overcoming or the barrier to accomplishing something can be an excuse. And so when I have lots of stress on me, if I simply am getting outside, whether it's for a walk or something, it's freeing to me. And so, yeah, my body's going to fail, but there's still the act of overcoming the challenge of, the body not performing or not, doing what you like. And I think that's part of some of the freeing nature or the psychology of helping you understand that, okay, well, I got a challenge here and I just overcame that. So that gives me a little traction in the day.
I appreciate that, Joel. And I appreciate also the self-awareness that, because this is the thing, I coach a lot of clients, right? And again, a lot of leaders at that. And particularly for those that, are starting to, the pounding on the knees, again, the same kind of adrenaline rush of what they need, but yet still trying to figure out how do they still adapt to not go into possibly a deeper depression when they don't have the same mechanism of what they're used to using. I appreciate Steve, because that mindfulness, the meditation, the yoga, the visualizations, those practices, and this is the thing, I don't want to some of these things that are written down here, and I love that someone put ice cream. I forgot ice cream. Steve, it's you again, Steve. Yes, Steve, come through. Because these are things. Soul care, self-care looks different for everyone. And in these moments when you are looking at how do you still continue to, self-regulate, that is really the part that some people struggle with, because they do feel, one, sometimes guilty, because they sometimes think that this kind of self-regulation, who really has time for it? Especially if you're dealing with a lot of competing things that are coming at you, or you feel as though that, hey, I don't really have time. Again, if you're dealing with health issues or challenges, there could be other things where you're discouraged before you even begin. So therefore, sometimes a person giving themselves self-pity and really wanting to go down, sometimes that rabbit hole, but not really looking at what they can do then differently. So I appreciate also the reward system, kind of like eating the frog first. You guys, I never knew where that saying came from. Eat the frog first. Who eats a frog? I'm sorry. Like, that's just one of those sayings that you just say it and you're wondering, where did we get that saying from? If anyone can help me figure out, eat the frog first, where that came from, you will help me out today. But it is, though, eating the frog first in this case. We're doing the hard task first. So therefore, you do then have your own personal reward systems. But that instant gratification, by us being in this, connected, definitely charged society now, a lot of us are losing our executive function and that kind of self-discipline that really then, one, again, acknowledges that we need to learn how to self-regulate. And two, we don't want to oversimplify it to take for granted. Are we really still practicing the basics? Are we still getting back to really doing these things? Again, are we really choosing it up at our desk? And if we are working and putting in, 60 hours a week, are we really then creating then those 10-minute breaks, those 25-minute clarifiers, or where we're really getting up from that desk and walking away? I guarantee you, with how many health challenges many of us are dealing with, how many mental challenges many of us are dealing with, how many times that many of us are being short fused, whether it's road rage or other things when we're going home, we're not really practicing what we know to do. And these are those things that as human beings, and again, you know, it is sometimes that oversimplification within the words, but if you look at the word human beings, being, like there's a space that we're honestly designed to be, to honestly just be and to be present to certain things that allow ourselves to get reconnected so we can then get back in tune to our higher mindfulness, our higher intelligence, so we can then continue to adapt and evolve. So again, I really, and then sleep, someone put that on there, and I wish that I could have put sleep on here like a gazillion times, because they've done enough research and studies to show that the number one thing, even more so than your diet, more so than even exercise, it is still yet the amount of sleep that you're allowing yourself then to get. And again, with us having all the blue lights and other things that are stimulating us, things of where, again, you know, if we're not putting healthy boundaries and margins, these are those kinds of things that getting back to the foundation and the basics. And again, let alone when your biological clock starts to change. That does happen too, right? And so therefore you need to then still be mindful of the different hacks and the different things, what you need to do to make sure that you are then really prioritizing and helping those things be in place. Because without it, it's so hard. And that's when, again, we become very rigid when we have to deal within these kind of adaptable situations. So awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I also want to kind of encourage y'all to think of one thing, you know, as I just painted the picture, because the reality, as much as we want to, we can say the right answer, we can tell you the right thing, but really on the inside, pick one thing that you think that you really do want to work on this week. Or again, with your self-regulation, one thing that you say that this week that I want to be more consistent in, and I know that I need to do better. And it could be just that, sleep. So that goes back in that piece where, again, when I talked about earlier about, again, will this work for me? The different kind of self-talk that people give themselves, that why they don't engage into these self-regulating behaviors. You don't know what I'm dealing with. It's easier for you to say, I'm only a one-person show. I feel lonely. I mean, again, a lot of people dealing with and struggling with the isolation, and them then, again, not choosing to pick healthier habits, if you will. And that goes back to that fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. That one may choose to say that, hey, I may need, you know, I don't know. If I want getting a ticket, a speeding ticket, and I've already had a bum day, the fixed mindset may look at it from the space that I need to go home, get a drink. I need to go home and, you know, veg out and watch a lot of mindless TV. I need to go home and that big carton of ice cream is going to be great in this moment. Not to say anything is wrong, no judgment on any of those things. But typically, the one that may be in a growth mindset, that may have gotten a speeding ticket, and they're in a growth mindset, and they realize, okay, so was I really speeding? Do I need to really slow down and really make sure that I'm being mindful of the areas? You have a way of taking more accountability, self-accountability, more so than being outward and blaming. And again, it's no judgment, but it's one of those things that where each person really does need to really kind of keep assessing themselves to know that if they're really functioning within something that's going to allow them to adapt, or something that allows them to stay very rigid, and again, limit the possibility of them continuing to be able to evolve. But because we just did a huge exercise, you guys gave some great comments, don't feel like I need to spend a lot more time in this particular area. But if you do think that you are then more in a fixed mindset, I encourage you again for you to pick something that you are able then to say you're going to work on this week. And I see it's, again, and I apologize, I don't know if it's my internet. Sometimes, you know, during the school hours right now, my internet in the home can be a little choppy. So I apologize if I am coming across choppy. But guess what? We're adapting. Ah, perfect presentation. Perfect presentation. You can't go wrong. So one of the things that I do want to leave you guys with here, because again, as I mentioned before, that not only am I going to speak to you on how, but again, you know, what does this look like? Can everyone still hear me? Everyone, okay, great. So one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, that I'm ProSite certified, and again, there's different change models that are out there, but I really appreciate this, the ProSite one. ProSite one is a 5-step model, change model, that when applied to organization or to even the individual, it really does help one go on the adaptability journey. And ProSite stands for an acronym, and I have it written out where, again, you're going to look at one's awareness. You'll look at an awareness being the fact that there's one thing that you know, right? That there's a problem or that you need to do something, but your awareness does not always translate to your knowledge. So you can be aware, but that does not mean that you exactly know how to really go about doing something. So then typically with knowledge, that goes now along with what you're doing right now. You're part of this learning community, you choosing then to read, you choosing then to say, okay, great, I want to learn something more to then help me then, expand and to increase my understanding in something. So I'm aware, but then now a person's ability and their knowledge, that's a second bucket within one's ability to go on their adaptability and their journey with adaptability. The third area, though, is one's ability. So ability is still different than your awareness. Ability is different than even your knowledge, that although you may have read something and you are, familiar with it, but your ability now deals with your skill set. Am I able to honestly now apply whatever it is that I know, now that I know that I'm aware, but do I have the skill sets to be able to really honestly do something about it? But this is the bigger part. The bigger part is then put in orange. You can have your awareness, you could be knowledgeable, you could even increase your skills. But at the end of the day, if you do not have the desire, to want to still do something, one is not going to then go on this journey. And I have a true story that I want to share with you because, I would not have believed it if I didn't see it for myself. My grandmother, and she's recently gone on to, we say on to glory is the way to put it oftentimes. So my grandmother, who just recently went on to glory last year, 89 years of age, she lived in Buffalo, New York. And anyone that's familiar with Buffalo, New York, it's a very cold area during the wintertime. I mean, it's freezing. It's a lot of snow and a lot of cold. It's like living in an ice box, igloos, right? But my grandmother had her favorite spot in her front living room that she would love to sit in. And she would always have to watch her Buffalo Bills game. Buffalo Bills sitting in this front room, but the draft off the windows. And again, wintertime with the football season, draft off the windows, winter, a lot of snow, but it was always freezing in this room. So the grandkids, we decided to, buy her electric blanket. And we just thought it was going to be the best thing. Like if we got her an electric blanket, it was going to be this is it. Like grandma loves to sit in this front room. So weeks would go by. And I remember getting phone calls from my cousins that were there saying, Mandy, you came up with this great idea to get this electric blanket, but grandma's not using this electric blanket. So I remember then, I finally traveled back, had to wait for the snows to die down a little bit. Because like I said, it's, lake effect snows, a lot of snow in Buffalo. So I finally went there, personally myself, and I went to the, the room and I'm like, grandma, like, we got you this blanket and I'm not understanding, like, it has different temperatures. You're able to put it on low, medium, high. It has a wraparound snug that you can put directly around your feet. She would always explain about her feet or her hands being cold. And so it was, she graciously would always look at it and she'll smile about the blanket. But it was not until my other cousin decided one day to sit in the room with her. And as he was about to get ready to put the blanket on her because she was talking about how cold she was, the reality is that she did not want the blanket. So he was like, well, what's wrong? Why don't you want the blanket? And she was concerned getting electrocuted because it still could not comprehend for her that something that you plugged into the wall, and that although, yes, it's supposed to keep her warm, but it has these electrical coils that are going through it, that again, there was a resistance. Her desire was not strong enough, even though she was cold, to want to use this electric blanket. Who would have known that, again, that because the concept of it being an electric blanket, it was something that was turning her off. So again, she had the awareness. She even had the knowledge of what it could even do for her. even the skill aspect, the ability to be able to turn it off and on, but her desire was not there. So I've tossed it back over to us as we are in this journey and looking at, wanting to raise our adaptability quotient. Sometimes for us, that although we may be aware, although we may even have the knowledge, although we may have even taken certain courses and we may even have the skill set, there may still be that bigger part inside of us that we still need to challenge, to wonder if our desire is really still there, big enough to want to then still go on this journey. And so again, when everyone is then hitting that roadblock, that is where it goes back to then sometimes looking at what is the real rub? What is the real pause in this moment of why one does not want to continue on this journey? But if one does decide to keep going and adapting, the next things that within this ADKAR model is the fact you need these reinforcers. And so the reinforcers come in all different kinds of forms, whether if it's your accountability, whether if it's, you putting certain things in place to make sure that you're going to stick to these routines and these habits. But at the end of the day, this ADKAR model is awesome. And there's various other different techniques that when one is going through wanting to increase their adaptability skill sets, that again, by partnering with a coach, going through then these different learning sessions, it's amazing of how one can really increase this skill set. So with that being said, again, I appreciate everyone's time. And I know, Matt, you had asked for me to leave, again, about 5 or 10 minutes. I know that we kind of started 10 minutes into, but I do want to leave time right now for any kinds of questions, answers. I appreciate, again, for everyone that has come and, like I said, spent your time during this time for this kind of leadership sessions. As you can even see here, I have the 5, trying to move the screen down, but the 5-hour rule. Leadership is a practice. As much as we may want to, again, say that, hey, I've arrived or I've been here, done this, it's what we repeatedly do, right? The fact that, again, it's something that we have to stay on this thing, and it's different situations that bring out different things in us. Some of the work of what has been referenced through this presentation, I highly encourage, if you've not read, again, with the growth mindset and big mindset by Carol Dweck, with the book Mindset. She has an updated version that is on Audible or Blinklist. Same thing also, Cal Newport. He has a phenomenal book called Deep Work. As I mentioned to you guys earlier as well with Gallup, and again, the Strength Finders, you're able to even Google that. And if you purchase the book, they do have the adaptability assessment. And last but not least, again, you continue to keep growing with this AQ quotient by, again, mentoring and your coach, and more importantly, staying connected to this kind of forum with the leadership, community forum of what you guys are a part of here. But again, I just thank you guys for the time that you've allowed me to be here. I hope that this has been, the ideas has been valuable. You found this interesting. And more importantly, I appreciate just, Matthew and Joel and the rest of the team for the invite.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That was great. Hopefully, I know a couple people had to run, but, we learned about having a beginner's mindset, prioritizing your exploration and assessments and coaching in order to adapt in these times. These are all helpful tools. So again, thank you, Mandy, for coming and sharing today. Just want to remind you all, feel free to come and join us for coffee hour tomorrow. We could continue the conversation or have other conversations about how we're adapting in 2020 and all that's going on. And also keep in mind that we have another ILC next month, December 9th, from the COVID Leadership Lab team that's been doing some amazing work. Steve's in that group as well. So looking forward to next month. And again, thank you, Mandy, for joining and sharing with us today. And I know we're coming up on 102, so I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And